Okay, so I had a couple extra minutes or a little bit extra time today. So I pulled this back in. So I pulled the door panel, and what I'm working on is this crease. I've been working on it for about 10 minutes. So I've got it maybe 20% out. And access is pretty rough, being that it's inside the door. I bought this tool a while back and never used it until today. It's actually pretty cool. So it's a plastic head for an air hammer. And this Ingersoll Rand air hammer has got a real nice featherable throttle. So what I'm doing from the back side is just slowly working back and forth, kind of focusing on the worst, and then kind of spreading that force up and down gently. You know, I don't want to like just push it out one spot, then push it out, because that'll make it all wrinkly. So just working back and forth. You can kind of see the marks. This crease basically ended where this little, where the strip tab is. And that's just about fully out. So now I'm just working back and forth. You know, luckily this gets covered in the weather strip, so even if it doesn't look perfect, that's fine. I just need this bend in the sheet metal to be in the right place. You know, I've worked on this edge, and this corner. Getting closer. So I'm gonna work some more on this and see how it comes out. All right, so this is about another 10 minutes. You still see it's got a little, where the paint is splitting, that was the deepest. It's hard to get a good angle, but this area right here still needs to come out, because the edge or the corner that should be there is still kind of rolled in. So basically this kind of lasts a little bit here. The rest of this is pretty close. There's a little low spot here. And again, like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I just need this little joggle, this little stair step, to be in the right spot compared to this part of the door. Once I feel like I've got it to where it feels right, then I'll go to the other side, to the good door, and figure out, either make a template or some place to get measurements. But it's looking pretty good. You know, for the door that a whole lot of people have told me is garbage, I think it's coming out okay. To get it perfect, it's obviously going to take some filler. But I'm going to get all this, you know, within a 1/16 of an inch or less of where it's supposed to be. You know, once this area on the backside is set, then I can start working on these highs here. And then this whole part here is rolled in. But this thing's the ticket. Pretty happy with this. It's pretty controllable, and I'm using, I don't know if I can figure out where I set it. Yeah. No. Using a regular body dolly to back it up, so that way I'm not producing highs. So, do a little more work and show you the progress in a bit. Okay, so this is probably another 10 or 15 minutes. But you can see the crease now is basically where it's supposed to be. It's still a little wavy right here in this corner, but you know, that where this paint is chipped off, that was the valley before. So I think I'm gonna call this good enough for this. And now I'm gonna work on, I think I'm gonna have to build something to get in here from the inside to gently work my way around and push this out. I can't find anything that I have that'll just get in there. trying to show. There we go. You can see I did a whole lot of hitting on that area, basically in line with that hole. And those plastic ends do a pretty nice job of not completely destroying the paint and tearing it off. So now you can see that crease where the skin ran into this crease here, where my fingernail is, where it ran into the door frame. So I'm also gonna have to come up with some kind of a really thin dolly I can fit in there to support the door as I work that high down. You can see that big wave. This is gonna get pushed outward. Kind of the trick, you know, and again, I'm not a professional bodywork guy, but when you got a big dent, you got to kind of figure out what's holding the dent there, because the sheet metal wants to be the shape that they made it in. So if you don't have a crease, like this has got like a real gentle kind of crown in this area that I'm sure will spring right back on its own. It's just, it's being held by this. So I got to figure out where exactly the tension is, that, you know, where the metal was actually bent. And obviously this is one of them, but I just think this whole body line was pushed in this way and is bent. So keep working slowly at it. I'm probably at a point today where, you know, I've learned my nature when I work. Sometimes if I'm frustrated or I don't know exactly what I'm doing, I end up doing more harm than good. So sometimes it's good to do a bit, take a step back, reevaluate, think about it, you know, sleep on it if you have to, and think about what the right next step is. Okay, well, I guess I wasn't ready to call it a day yet. I cut some blocks of wood to fit inside the door, and then I used some wedges to gently push this out. It's getting pretty close. This area right here basically still is low. Especially you can see right. This is kind of the epicenter of the problems, because this transition from this to this little roll is nice and smooth until about right here, and then it's rolled in right above this radius right here. So that's the next thing I got to do. Is I think I'm going to cut a piece of wood. Right now the piece has just been flat against here to work on this. But now I think I'm gonna make it come to almost a point to support it just right at the top of that radius. And then I can work on that area. But it's come along pretty nice. See the shape just keeps getting better and better. And the gap in the quarter panel keeps getting bigger, but that's okay. I'll see if I can find, this is dirt. I'll see if I can find a picture right after I got this as to how bad this was. Shoot, this is honestly better than I thought the door was gonna get. Once I got that inner structure straightened out with that crease, this just really started to come along. Pretty happy with that. You see, once I get that out right there, there's still a, right here, an outward ridge of where this was all folded over. So So what I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have to make my own dolly to fit in there because it needs to be really thin. Might actually be something like this scraper, a little thicker than that, to where this will be on the inside of the door, but it'll fit and kind of engage in that stair step to get me all the way out and a nice surface to work against. All of the work I've been doing on the outside has been with plastic. I've tried not to hit this at all with a regular body hammer. So I'll use, like I used this piece fit in this gap really nice. There was a big ugly high spot right here, and I would use that. I'd use the heat gun and try to keep this pretty hot. I've seen the videos with the paintless dent removal guys. They say they try to keep the paint between 185 and 200, and that keeps it from cracking. So I've been trying to keep it hot, and then only work on it against it with plastic. There's still a pretty ugly bump right here, but I don't think I've done really that much more damage to the paint than what was already there. I think I'm gonna get some compound and kind of polish this up, because having it shiny really helps in seeing what's going on with the surface. But now I'm calling it a night for real. Okay, so this is the next day. I've got the door where I feel pretty comfortable where this line is, this edge. So I just pumped out the seatbelt winding mechanism. And I'm working on finding a tool I can get in there to try to pry out this area. Because just this way of it, I feel like it's in the proper spot, so it's just creased really hard and then flows out this way. So I want to try to get this area out a little first, and then I'm gonna kind of work my way this way and then up. I mean, not really work my way this way, but I'm gonna work on this edge and then this edge. So we'll see what I can come up with to fit down in there. Okay, well, I've been fighting with this for a while and I'm really not making much progress. So I'm on to like plan H or I or who knows at this point. So I made this up, 3/16 plate. 3/16 is the depth of the offset of this little guy, this body line. So this thing is cut to where it just fits inside the opening that the seatbelt winder leaves. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slip that thing inside, and I've got to build another piece, kind of a C-shaped piece, because the bottom of the seatbelt winder opening is about this high, but I need to push down here and even down into here. So I'm gonna build an end for the porta power that will have about a 6-inch, like a 6x6 shape to it. So I can go through the hole, but reach down into these corners and the full extent of this damage. And then I'll be pushing on this, which will do a couple things. It'll help, the body's basically flat in this area, so that'll push the sheet metal flat. It'll push all the sheet metal in a large area to not make any ugly high spots. This is all hot glue. I tried one of those things you see where you hot glue it on and pull. That didn't do anything. But anyway. And then once this is pushed out and has some pressure on it, then this will also act as like a dolly for doing some hammer work, for knocking down highs that I'm sure there'll be lots of. So I got this piece ready. I spent some time with some cardboard, got a piece that fits, basically fits into the back side of the inner fender well, and it fits all down in here. So next thing, like I said, I gotta make that kind of C-shaped adapter to reach through the opening and to hit this well. but that's what I'm going to design next. All right, so I showed that piece that I made a minute ago that I'm going to use to push the quarter panel out. So here's where I drew those pieces up, and then I just drew this piece. So this is going to be like an attachment for my porta power. So it'll reach in through that seat belt opening and be able to reach down into the dent area. And so, find my mouse here. So this kind of little pad spot, that's where it's going to do the pushing on the back of this piece. And then directly in line with it, I'm going to weld a section of a porta power extension. I'll weld it on there temporarily. And then the porta power will basically reach across the inside of the car and push on the opposite wall. We'll have to kind of shore up an area with some blocks of wood or whatever it takes to try to push on strong spots in a large surface area, so it doesn't want to bend that side of the car. It'll just bend, you know, where I'm pushing on this thing. So that's in my plain QCAD software, and then this is the software for the plasma table. So you can see I bring the drawing in, and then you do a little bit of stuff, and it comes up with a cut path. So this is where the plasma will actually pierce and then run along, and this line is the center line of the cut, and this line represents the kerf width, or the metal that's lost in the cut. And basically the drawn part is here, so it adds this to the outside, or if it had holes, it puts it to the inside of the holes, so your part cut comes out the right dimension. And then I usually keep this filled in black just so it's easier to look at, and that's it. So now I'm gonna export this to a thumb drive and take it out to the garage and cut it out. All right, here we are in the cut computer. Just cut this out. Made this piece out of 1/2 inch. Should hopefully be strong enough. You know, this is 2 inches wide, and the center line down is about 5 inches. So I don't know, this is just kind of a gut feeling design, so I'm just pushing on sheet metal, but I'll just keep an eye on this, and you know, try not to collapse it when I'm pushing on it with the porta power. So I'm gonna let this cool down a minute, and then get it cleaned up and go test fit it in the car and make sure this gets down in all the areas I want it to reach. Well, I had a little bit of a hard time getting this piece out of the parent material. Cut quality is pretty nice, but I was in a rush and I put a 65 amp tip in there, but I forgot to crank the machine up. Because usually this thing cuts 1/2 inch just absolutely perfectly, but that's still not bad. You know, the dross is kind of heavy, but I almost actually prefer it like this, because then you can just tap it with a hammer and it just breaks right off, and then it's really easy to clean up. I find that when you get this thing really humming along kind of in its optimal speeds, the dross is smaller but harder to get off sometimes. So get this cleaned up and test fit in the car. All right, so as you can see, the whole idea is for this to slip down inside there and be able to get deep down to the upper rocker area. So I think it's gonna work. Like I said before, there'll be an attachment welded on right here for the porta power, and then I'll go across to the other side of the car and brace that up and get as much surface area as I can so I don't dent anything over there. So the next step is get that piece welded on and start pushing this dent. Okay, so I'm doing a little more work on my little reach around the corner custom dent pusher deal. So this is one of the porta power extensions, and unfortunately this is kind of an odd size. It's about 7/8 where all these extensions plug together. And without going and buying something, I just couldn't find anything that fit perfectly. So I had this 1.5" quarter wall DOM laying around, and so it's sloppy. But what I did is drilled and tapped a hole. And I set that distance to where it's centered on this groove. And then I put a point pretty similar to like the shape of a drill bit, that kind of angle on the end of that bolt, so it can kind of lock into this groove. And then that way it'll make itself straight. You know, it's not super important. I just don't want this thing falling apart as I'm trying to wrestle it into position and possibly have something fall and hit the car, or my toes, or, you know, whatever. So this will just lock into place, and then, you know, I'll use whatever series of extensions I need to reach across to the other side of the car, the inside, and I'll build some sort of shore up, some sort of area to push on and really spread the load out on the passenger side interior. So I think I'm just about ready to give this a try. This is smoking hot because I just got done welding it, but hoping this works. Unfortunately today, I've got a big truck rack in here I'm building, but this will be finished and loaded up here in a little bit, and then I can pull my car back in. Got to pay the bills before you can play with your own stuff, but yeah, so hopefully here in the next segment, you'll see this being used. Like I said before, we'll be pushing on this guy. I need to hit this with a grinder and kind of soften all these edges a little, but I'm going to push on this. That'll spread the load, and you know, in the beginning, this is kind of right about here on the car is kind of the worst spot. So I can concentrate this right there, and then, you know, slowly work around to get it pushed out where it needs to be. And then while this is also under tension, like I said, I can use this as a kind of a backup dolly and kind of tap down high spots. And while I'm doing all this, you know, I got to remember to keep my heat gun out, keeping the panel warm, because you want to keep the sheet metal at about 185 degrees to keep the paint soft to where it'll want to flex with the sheet metal and not just flake off. So it's kind of a lot of moving parts and things to keep track of, but like I've kind of mentioned before, I just do this in little bites so I don't feel pressured to get it done or whatever. Luckily this is, you know, my own car, so it's my own time frame, and, you know, if it takes me 6 months to do this, then it takes me 6 months, no big deal. But it's better than being in a rush and pushing too hard or making a wrong choice and doing more damage than good. So I'm gonna let this cool, soften up all these edges, and then when I get done with my truck rack project, I'll get back to work on the car. Okay, so back to work on this. So that's a piece, that white piece is 3/4 inch. It's like HDPE, high density polyethylene plastic, and it's hitting a bunch of kind of intersecting strong points. And then I got these blocks of wood just to kind of help hold the end of the porta power where I want it to be. And I got the porta power and my little custom hook. I'm just figuring out what I'm going to start with. That metal plate I made, I need to get this pushed out a little bit first before it even fits in there. So I'm getting ready to do a couple little test pushes and see how this works out. Okay, well, that's just with a couple minutes of pushing. This really works fast. It's got so much power. So I was concentrating on this really like folded over area. Hopefully that plate I built, it basically ends at this seam. So hopefully it'll reach down there because I can't quite get in there with just that hook. I gotta pull this flare back off so I can really see what's going on behind it. I gotta get this stupid hot glue off so that when I get that plate in there, I can start body working this out. Okay, I did some more work off camera. This stuff's so hard to do when you're filming, and I don't know, it's distracting as well. But I pulled the flare off. I'm getting ready to cut this piece off. I'm gonna drill out all the spot welds carefully. It's just so mangled here, and underneath there's a lot of damage still under this vertical flange. But I got it roughed out for the most part. There's still this little spot right here. Well, still basically like this area and then this area. You know, this is still real wavy. But until I get, you know, this is heavily damaged under this flare. So until I get that straight, trying to get any of this any better, I think is a waste of time. But you can see the door is it needs to be adjusted a little tighter. But that's coming along. The car still does have a little slight V shape to it, so I did some more checking, and this whole door jamb has been pushed in a little bit. But that's actually pretty easy to push out. Yep, still got a ways to go, but I'm very pleased with just the fact that I'm going to be able to get this fixed without cutting this panel out. I'm sure I'm going to have to build something to get into this. You know, through that seatbelt hole, you can get all the way down into this area. There's kind of a little bridge right here, but there's a space on either end of it. So I'm gonna have to build something really long to get down in there through that hole to push this out. Not sure how I'm gonna do that yet. Worst case is being that this rubber piece covers this area up. Worst case scenario is I could cut this guy off and then cut a hole in the rocker and build something to get inside and pull that out that way. But I'd rather not do that. You know, I'm trying not to go backwards a bunch of steps, but it's getting close. You know, I think I showed pictures, but when I first bought this car, or first got this thing, starting about here in the door, it is ramped straight in, and from this angle, you could see the whole tire. This was pushed in so far. So I'm pretty stoked. It's you can kind of see the reflection in the door. You know, this still has a crown right here. And then this body line is still rolled inwards. So there's like an inward dent and then it flares up. And I've got to build something to reach into this as well and push this back out. But I am super pleased with the door. You know, once I get that straightened out, this door is going to take very minimal filler. I still got this kind of ridge I'm going to tap down. But it's turned out good. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. I've got a series of truck racks to build, so I put my own stuff away for a while and get some work done. So there will definitely be more videos on this thing in the future. Guys, I love this little thing, and you know, I want to make it pretty. And you look down this side, it's virtually perfect. I did find one little door ding somewhere the other day, but now I don't even remember where it was. One thing I am looking for, originally I wanted to keep this thing 100% original, but I want to do a couple little things to it. And I really, really like the Japanese market Jimny aluminum wheels. I'm trying to find a set of those to put on this. And I like them because they're, as far as I can tell, they're all the same width and offsets and everything as these wheels. So as far as the drivability and all that goes, nothing will change. They'll just look nicer. Because it really doesn't take much to screw up how these things drive. But anyway, that's it for now, and thanks for watching, and keep your eyes open for future videos on this thing.